Hello, everyone. Can you hear us? Are you out there, campers? Are we live? Can someone give us a verbal confirmation in the chat box that you can hear us?
And see us. Y'all are
Okay.
live. Yes.
Okay. Cool, cool,
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, cool. How's everyone doing? We've got some great chat box going. We're talking about favorite beverages during the summertime. Oh, thank you, Victoria.
Wow, thanks, Victoria. Gassed.
You. Okay, we're gonna get started in like 2 minutes or so. We'll give other folks a chance to hop on. Thank you all for being here, for coming to Camp Summer Institute. Spoiler, the people that you see in these windows have been working really hard at creating a lot of the promotional stuff for Camp Summer Institute. So it's exciting for us to be able to see everyone actually here because we helped get y'all here.
Yes. Agreed. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, thank you.
Hi, Shelby. Have you sent that? Hey, y'all.
Ooh, it's all screaming. You got your camper kit, Scott? I know, I got mine yesterday and I was like, wow. This is so cute. This is perfect for like, yeah.
That's a good look.
Okay, I'm going to
Frederick
share.
season is so amazing. I love peaches. I want to go. Thank you for
Those
that, Michael.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, it's 12:12. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Gonzalez. I am the Texas Rising Digital Organizing and Comms Coordinator. I lead the digital team, which is the lovely folks you see here today, as well as Frankie, who is actually leading the Send Tweet panel. So he is not here with us at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Okay. Okay. So just a quick grounding. Obviously, everything is digital now. At the beginning of the year, I was the only person really doing any of the digital comms for Texas Rising. And now we're a team of like 5 or 6 people. So we've had to shift just like everyone else has really quickly to be able to maintain some level of work as to what we were doing before now. So a lot of the folks on this team came in, I mean, everyone comes into digital from like a different background, but not everyone thought that they were necessarily going to be a digital organizer when they started. So we want to share some of the information we've learned about how to work together and really create a successful digital team, and share it with you all in hopes that you can start building your capacity. I know I've been the person who's the only person doing digital comms for several organizations. So I know what it's like to feel like you don't have any resources. And hopefully we can provide tips on how to start slowly building your capacity. So today we're just gonna do really quick intros right now and go over this agenda, then talk about what's in a digital strategy, talk about our teamwork, and talk about takeaways, and then do a Q&A. Also feel free to leave questions in the chat box. We have our awesome chat box attendant, Lexi, keeping track of that for us. So we're going to start with the Meet the Digital Team intros. So TFN is a little different than some nonprofits in that we actually have a pretty sizable digital team. So we have our director who leads the department, our communications deputy director, Jose, who does a lot of writing, Aria, who designs a majority of our graphics, and then myself, who is the organizing and comms coordinator for Texas Rising specifically. Then we have our digital team for Texas Rising. So if everyone can kind of introduce themselves and just let everyone know where you come into this work from.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ima Lohi Aramoselli, but everyone calls me Ima. I guess I'm more of like a self-taught graphic and digital content maker, kind of just like messing around on Canva. And I was able to kind of use that like general interest. And I took on a communication fellowship with Texas Rising about like 1 or 2 years ago. And from there, I became a deputy field organizer, primarily registering people to vote. And then I was able to kind of be funneled back into digital work again through being added to the digital communications team.
Hi guys, my name is Bianca Martinez and I am also a deputy digital organizer with Texas Rising. Prior to starting this position in March, I was a field organizer often on campus at Northwest Vista and UTSA in San Antonio.
Hi, I'm Larissa. I joined TFN and Texas Rising in January. I was a fellow with another program, actually, with BLC, and I was with them in January when I started working with Josh.
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, Frankie Alamos is also a deputy digital organizer with us. Frankie, I believe, was with the field team in Central Texas at A&M. And Frankie does a lot of the social media publishing for Texas Rising. He's leading that send tweet panel, so after we send you the recordings, be sure to go check that one out because it'll be good as well. Okay, so here we go. Larissa. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. So the first thing that we do when we are starting a campaign, whether that be encouraging folks to get registered to vote or encouraging them to take the census, these are the initial questions that we as a team ask ourselves and each other. First and foremost, who is your audience? It's super important to know who you're wanting to reach. And you also want to make sure that you are very clear in the message that you're sending to them. What is it exactly that you want them to do? Do you want them to just be informed, or do you want them to actually register to vote or to take the census? So your call to action and your message play together hand in hand. After that, it's important to understand where your audience is on the internet. How is it best to reach them with this message and with this call to action? Is it best through an email? Is it best through Instagram or Twitter? So it's important to know where your audience hangs out on the internet. And then once you have that information down, your next step is to think about how to best reach them on whatever platform it is that you're going to use. Is it more effective then to reach them on stories on Instagram, or by posting a picture on Twitter, or excuse me, a video on Facebook? What does the video look like? Is it somebody just sitting down and talking to the camera? Does it involve a lot of graphics? Does it have a lot of terms and definitions? These are just a few questions that we ask ourselves whenever we're starting a project.
Okay, so Larissa mentioned a whole bunch of like digital questions we ask when we're starting a digital strategy. So now we'll talk about like what digital is when we talk about that. Digital organizing is like field organizing's like young, hip cousin, like the cousin that asks you if you have games on your phone. That's digital organizing. This year, everything's digital. We knew that. I mean, this presentation was, this is an adapted presentation from one we did earlier this year, but this line here was eerily present back in February. So even before, even before the pandemic hit, we knew that we had to be present in digital spaces. So it's a lot like field organizing, and that you're still moving people from point A to point B, but there are many more touch points where you can interact, communicate, engage, and pivot your message that you're communicating to your digital audience. So you can think of digital as like the email that you get from an organization, the image in the email, the language or copy that's in the email, and then the data that also tracks whether or not you open the email, or if you took that action, or if you followed that form. So each piece of that is what we mean when we're talking about digital strategy. You muted.
Hi guys. So why is digital so popular? Digital is popular for many reasons, but one of the best reasons I think is that it's simple. A lot of people can start a digital movement online, on social media, without having a platform to begin with, without having, 1,000 followers on Instagram or Twitter. As we see, we have our Instagram stories that we use to repost whatever Texas Rising posts. We have Twitter for the retweets and replies. And one of the newer applications that we use, that a lot of people use to spread awareness about social issues and politics, is TikTok. And a lot of these apps are free, and it's easy for anyone to feel that they have a space and a voice that can be shared. I think one of the scary things that people think is they aren't sharing the right information, that they aren't as competent. But the fact that it's so simple to get in contact with other people, send a DM, makes it really easy for all of us. So Target. As we know, Texas Rising and a bunch of other nonprofit organizations such as Move Texas, for instance, we have a target audience between the ages of 18 and 30. It's really important that we are aware of that so we know what kind of content that we are going to put out there. For instance, in September of 2019, we had our Teach the Truth campaign. And I think all of us can agree that people in public schools, young people specifically, deserve a more inclusive sexual education in schools, right? And unfortunately, that's not the case here in Texas and in a lot of places. And your income should not affect the education that you receive. So that's when we took it upon ourselves to join the Teach the Truth campaign, where we were advocating for a more inclusive and informative sexual education. The reason why this was something that I want to talk about, because this is not information that you might see on your Facebook timeline, because it's not like your mom or your grandma might be reposting this, but this is something that the followers of Texas Rising can see on their Instagram timeline. And also another cute and quirky way that we get involved to reach out to people between the ages of 18 and 30 is the Instagram Lives. In September 2019 as well, Lexi, Regional Field Coordinator from the San Marcos and San Antonio area, actually went on Instagram Live to talk to people to get their vote out. Just another way that made it easier for us to reach the people that we want to become engaged. And flexibility. So as you guys may know, there's always things happening in our world. Issues are quickly coming out. It's really important that we stay mindful of the things that are happening around us. And whenever we are focusing on something, if something else more important comes up, if there is someone, a marginalized group that is being oppressed or that we feel is not receiving the enough recognition, it's really important that we adapt quickly and we choose to shed light on the issues that we feel deserve more talk and more conversations around this. And one of the things that I realized about the digital team is that oftentimes when we're working on a project, something else more important may have deserved conversation and deserve a spotlight. And that's when it came to shifting our focus onto things that needed that attention. And then cheap. So one of the nice things about the digital world and the digital movement is that a lot of the applications that we use, such as Instagram or Twitter, they're cheap and they are free. And one of the ways that I learned WordPress is through Josh. When Josh taught me WordPress to update the Texas Rising website, he actually taught me through Zoom on our Zoom meeting. He quickly just shared his screen, and that was one of the ways that I was able to learn how to use WordPress. And I learned a lot of ways through Ima, through Frankie, and let us on ways that we can bounce ideas off of each other. And I even had a lot of issues sometimes with Photoshop or Lightroom. And if I couldn't get to someone quickly enough or they were too busy, I joined a Facebook group with graphic designers, and I was able to pop my question and be like, hey, this is my issue. Can you guys help me? And these were people that had no idea what Texas Rising was or what I was doing, but it just goes to show how easy it is to make do with what you have.
So what is a digital strategy? Here at Texas Rising, our digital strategy entails three main categories. That is communications, tools, and data. So communications is the message part of the strategy, like what I was speaking on before. Tools is how you deliver that message, and data is how you measure the success of tools and communications. So that's when you collect information from the activity, the posts that you have, and can see what you did well, and where you can find areas to improve.
So this is a digital strategy web. This is the one that we use for Texas Rising that kind of outlines all of the different things that we do that fall within these different categories. Not every organization is going to have this exact strategy or the capacity for this strategy, or even some of these categories, because your strategy should be built around what your goal is. And for us, these are the most important pieces. Another thing that I want to highlight here is that you don't, like, again, you don't need every single piece of this strategy, but as you start building these things into what you're doing and increasing your capacity, these things should all be informing each other. So we're about to go through and like talk about where we fit into this web, but you'll notice that if you're working on designing the copy, you're also involved in like getting it published and talking to the person who's doing that. And then we all need to be looking at the data that we get from that stuff and being able to like adapt and shift. I just realized I was hovering over my screen share and not the actual presentation when I started talking about things. So like, sorry, let me go back. So like if you work in this department creating the things, you're also going to be talking to the people who post them and then talking to the people who collect the data and see that. So let's see, does somebody want to start, or Larissa, I do want to start, let's start up here in tools and kind of go over like some of these things that we use.
Sure. So something that we use is peer-to-peer texting, and that allows us to send sort of like a general text out to people in our audience who we want to target. And this message can be pretty general to begin with. That might include our call to action. And then these people can reply back to that general message and we can have a conversation with them. So it allows us to make things a little bit more personal, and answer any questions that they may have, or any details that they need any more information on. So that is a really helpful way to have a discourse with your audience.
We also do like broadcast texting, which is when you just send a message to a bunch of people, which is like, one of the two of these we did this morning when we texted everyone and said, "Good morning, campers, see you at 10. So that's how we're able to do that, to deliver that message. And then the CRM, which is a customer relationship management software, is something like MailChimp, if folks are familiar with MailChimp. We use one called Every Action. But it's basically a tool that allows you to do like mass communication emails and online forms and different ways to be able to like interact with your audience, but then also collect all the data about who opens and who doesn't open your emails. So these are some like tools that we use to share our message, but there's also a whole suite of publishing tools, including our social media properties, which Frankie oversees, that are both in the tools and kind of comms department. Bianca and Ima, do y'all want to get into the comms department and talk about the work y'all do in there?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first started with the digital team, I was writing a lot of emails that were being sent out for the digital trainings. And I found myself writing these really formal emails with this professional language. And then I was getting feedback and I realized that that's not the style of Texas Rising at all. And that's when I had to understand the copy. The copy is the text that we use that includes the language that we have that is our style, basically. And it goes everywhere from our emails to the tweets that we use to how we even communicate with each other on Slack. I think we can all agree that the style is kind of everywhere on our social media and just in the way that we interact with each other. So understanding the copy and the language was really important when it came to creating the work that we were going to post. And that is something that I implemented in the text and the emails, and then as well as the flyers that we even made for the Camp Summer Institute.
Yeah. So like just touching on design again, it's like the visual and auditory aspects that we deliver our messages with. So depending on the campaign or the initiative, it's going to kind of be illustrated or designed a certain kind of way. So that includes like photos, video content, infographics, GIFs, and all this stuff that we create is pretty much what kind of gets, after review and putting it together, it is what gets handed over to our publishing team, or like our publishing manager, or whoever's fulfilling that role in the moment.
I was just going to say, if you want to touch on PR and sort of influencers, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah. So in January, we started this new component to our digital strategy, which was basically bringing in influencers. And these are people across the state of Texas who we felt could carry our message and brand in a way that can bring people over to like our little corner of the internet. So we met with these people and went through all of their content on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. And it was sort of this long process of choosing people, going through their content, creating briefs and contracts with them once they agreed to partner with us, reviewing the content that they made for us, and then scheduling out when we wanted that content to go live. As a few months went on in 2020, we partnered with TMC, who kind of did a lot of that background work for us. So now what we're doing is basically approving. So we approve the people who they think would make good influencers. We approve the content to make sure that it's on brand with Texas Rising and what we're trying to accomplish. And basically, we're trying to make sure that the influencers using their platform to push people towards Texas Rising and any call to action that may be. So lately, it's been get out the vote. So they're using their platform to reach their audience to get them to register to vote with Texas Rising tools.
Funny, Scott. But it kind of goes to the point that Lotus was saying, it's just like influence, like we could have a whole conversation about influencers, but influencers are like organizers, and that they're people who use their personal story and narrative to push their audience to do something. So like we all are all potential influencers. Yeah, so there's this whole like piece of PR and comms, which is also our message. And then I'll touch real quick back on data. It's like I mentioned, it's something that we don't, this team right here doesn't interact with in collection a lot of, because that is like a whole world that's like a little bit more inaccessible to like this kind of stuff, I would say. But data is really important because it measures how well your campaigns are doing. And then you can use that while you're running the campaigns to know if you need to shift, pivot, try something else, or continue what you're doing. So all of these things like targeting demographics, for like, if you know you want this specific demographic for a specific action, you can target them based on that demographic information. Is it ethical? Who knows? But you can do that. We know that Facebook allows us to do that. And then this is where we get into like figuring out how we're going to do paid ads. Return on investment, ROI, is like how well your things do, like puts a dollar value to like, we should be able to see, okay, this influencer cost us this much money based on how many voter registrations they turned out. So data is really important in helping you understand how your strategies are working.
Okay, so when it comes to navigating a digital team, of course, there are many roles and responsibilities in order for everything to move as efficiently as possible. So, for instance, in our digital team, Aria takes on a large bulk of the illustration and design stuff that we do. I am very lucky in which I just take what they create and put it on Canva, and I'm able to flip it and work it and make it look good for our graphics and things like that. But that's basically like us collaborating and being able to fulfill those roles. Um, we also have other roles such as content writers, producers, editors, videographers. Things like this really come in handy when it comes to wanting to create video content, which we can't really do so much lately because obviously we need to be social distancing and like working remotely. But we have pretty much actually made some graphics and have basically tried to bridge that gap of fulfilling these roles even from our various different cities and places. And each person can take on this role or take on a role, come together, have Zoom meetings, edit what they need to do, and then go back and fulfill the roles again, and so on and so forth. There's roles like webmaster, and this is someone who creates a lot of the web pages. And for us, that's mainly Josh right now, bless his heart. And we also have social media coordinators. So that's like people who are doing the design work and the illustration and making the video content and all the things, right? We have all of our information or all of our content that we want to put out, and we need someone to help us plan and kind of organize when these things can go out and what platforms they're going to work best on. So like video content works really well on Instagram and Facebook, I think, and obviously YouTube and things like that. I'm posting graphics on Twitter. So social media coordinators are mainly people, or at least I think in our group, it's mainly Frankie who takes over that role and is able to kind of put all the things where they need to go.
Thank you, Ima. Yeah, another thing about this is that
I left her out, my bad girl.
Okay. Another thing about these roles is that like as someone who's been a single person at an org doing comms, like I think people on this team also find that you do a little bit of everything, or that maybe now that you don't have like a specific role, but you do an amalgamation of a couple of different things. That's what I love about digital actually, is that like you can learn new skills constantly. So maybe you're a designer, but you want to learn how to coordinate projects and become a producer. You can do that. So yeah. So now we're going to talk about teamwork, how we work together, kind of like in a simple process outline of like how do we take on a project. But we could break this down into many more steps, but the basic ones are: 1, definition phase, what is the project? 2, creation and coordinate and get the project together, and then 3, distribution.
So when we first start a project, we start with the definition. And this is basically us all coming together and trying to get on the same page about what the project is, what the campaign will look like, and then from there we're able to break it down into smaller goals and timelines. And this is particularly helpful so that you don't feel overwhelmed as a team by this big giant goal. It's helpful to kind of like break things down into smaller goals and to have different timelines and due dates on those, and different deliverables, which is basically just like saying how you want those the outcome of those smaller goals to look like. So it's definitely helpful to break things down to not be so overwhelmed, and it helps you stay on track too. It helps you make sure that that nothing is kind of like falling through the cracks, because if there's just one big thing that needs to be done, there are a lot of smaller things too, but sometimes they can get kind of left behind if you're not defining what those smaller things are and when they need to be accomplished. So again, this is the part of the process where we're thinking about who our audience is, and then we're we're building the strategy around reaching them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Larissa. I think I'm going to go ahead and work on the creation and coordination part.
Oh, wait, really quick though. We need to cover brainstorming.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so really quick, once we can kind of like defined like the things that we're doing or like our general goals, we kind of take all that information that we like sit down and talk about and like struggling through together, in order to brainstorm a bigger picture and a bigger vision for our campaign or your initiative, what have you. So in doing that, our main two questions that you want to kind of ask yourself is, well, how do you want your audience to feel when they see whatever campaign or whatever message that you're trying to deliver? So that's very much focusing on like the mood and the tone of the campaign, or your project. So if it's going to be something serious concerning like, a very, I don't know, no nonsense issue. You want to make sure that whatever you're brainstorming and whatever you're defining and whatever your project is delivering and conveying that same mood and tone. And in doing that, you also want to ask yourself, well, how does this message and how does this mood and tone bring us closer to our overall goal?
All right. So before we can hit the ground running with the things that we want to create for our social media page, it's really important that we are all on the same page of the issues that we are talking about. When we represent Texas Rising, it's really important that we have a good understanding of the things that we are going to be promoting or endorsing. That's where the issue overviews come in very handy. Before, I would read the issue overviews, and maybe I wouldn't read them as in depth as I needed to, and then I found myself running into a lot of problems. And it's really important that we are asking each other these questions and not afraid to talk to each other about maybe the political side, the research side of things when we don't have all the answers. And one of the things that I think is really important as well is our area and our space when we are working digitally. So if you go into an office, your desk is going to be hopefully clean so you can work efficiently. And when you go into the field team, when you're working at college campuses, you have your backpack, your highlighters, your voter registration forms, PTVs, and whatnot, and you come prepared. And it's the same thing for a digital team, and that's where we use our content calendar. And on the content calendar, we can update each other on the progress of our projects. Sometimes I will admit I fall behind, like I probably have something from March that says like in progress still, but it's not in progress anymore. But yeah, we can update each other about how active we are, how far along we are, and this really gives each other a good idea of where we need to connect with people. Sometimes, I don't know if anyone else has this issue, but sometimes I just like don't see all my messages on Slack. And it's a good way of knowing where we all are at without having to text each other, talk to each other. And we can just kind of see how we're doing from afar. And I think that's really important when we're not in this space where we can quickly ask like, hey, Ima, like, what did you do for this defund the police project? I don't have to do that. I can just check our content plan calendar and see how far along she is. So yeah, utilizing those digital organizing ways to stay clear with everything that we have. And one of the things that I like the most that I learned from the digital team is the project briefs. The project briefs, if you guys are not familiar with them, they are a way to get our point across for the projects that we are creating, a way to show the people what our goal is, what the narrative is, how we want to deliver our project. We can also add in mood boards and other aspects that really bring our piece together. And I even started using like project briefs for like my personal life, like when I have things to do in my own time. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. So yeah, those are just ways that I found were very helpful to stay on track of everything.
I love that metaphor, Bianca, of like, or not, I don't know if that's a metaphor, but comparing it to like being organized like in physical workspace, because digital you like definitely need the same sort of organization.
Yeah, clearing your desktop on your computer.
Yeah. Or clearing it so that you don't get those Photoshop errors. Okay, so distribution is the final phase. This is a big word for a lot of things that we do in the final phase of a project, but this is where we publish or administer the projects. So this is the part that most people actually see from a digital team, the final product, right? This is where data comes into play because we can review its performance online and in people's emails and on social media. We can take a look at that data and figure out, is it working? Is it not working? And then we can make changes and adjust or continue on if it is working or isn't. So depending on how it's performing, we can make a decision then about what to do next or how we completed our project. But this is like the final part of the project phase for us. Now some takeaways.
Okay, so the question on everyone's mind, I'm sure, is how do I start? Where do I start? I think even the question before used to be like, is organizing online even valid? Well, obviously, it has proven to be very valid and like our main way of communicating, right? So I feel like if it's organizing online has shown its necessity for sure, and we need as many people as involved in like our fight and like our moving forward as possible. So becoming a digital organizer is something that any one of us can do. I never thought that I would do this. I'm not tech savvy whatsoever, but here I am. Here your girl is on the panel and whatnot talking about it. So, it really takes more passion and interest and drive than anything else. Those are the three things that are innate to you that no one can take away from you. You can learn how to use Photoshop. You can learn how to use Adobe. You can learn how to use all the other things. But it's just having that motivation that this is something that I want to do. I want to start using my platform, no matter how big or small, someone's going to see it to talk about what's important to me. So within your team, it's very important that y'all have open, clear communication, clear direction and common goals, are willing to collaborate, and just kind of defining your roles and responsibilities. And although those roles may switch every now and then, and someone may pick up the slack here or there, just having a general idea of everyone's strong suits, and how you can come together and work together to reach your common goal. So build your digital community. This is probably a little easier said than done, but it's very possible and very doable. Kind of like what Bianca mentioned earlier. She was having trouble with some graphic design things and joined a Facebook community with people who were willing to help her. So it's like, if you need the help or assistance, it's definitely there. There are YouTube tutorials, there are all types of free products and blog posts and things that you can learn from. And it's also important to kind of rely or tap into some friends who have skills that you may not have. I always say that I don't know how to draw, but I know when things look good. So I'm grateful when I have people like Bianca who can help me Photoshop, and Josh who can whip out the tablet and the stylus, and Aria who can provide me with these assets, and I just am able to make them work together. So that way they can focus on what they're good at and their strong suits, and I can do the same, and boom, we got a whole campaign going. So yeah, just finding people who have similar passions as you and who are willing to collaborate, and that's really all there is to it. You can use Canva, you can use Adobe, there's all types of student discounts, you can use MailChimp. The resources are there. It's just about finding it, and taking the leap into feeling brave enough or feeling confident enough in yourself that you can do this.
Thank you, Ima.
I got you.
Okay, so the last thing we want to say before we start a Q&A session is just that you can't start flying the first day. So when I started this work, I definitely wanted to get to like the biggest thing that I could see happening, like a YouTube ad campaign or whatever. But you can't fly unless you know how to run, and you can't run unless you can walk, and you can't walk unless you can crawl. So start with what's available and possible for you and your team that you're working with, and then build out from there, and you'll eventually get there. So Yeah, that's kind of how we work as a team, how we take on projects. Does anyone have questions in the chat box, or I don't know if y'all can like request the mic. Um, Anything unanswered?
This is the Q&A portion.
Give us your cues. Okay, so we have a question from Arash, how to go viral. I actually was going to put a section in this in this presentation that was like questions that don't that you don't need to be asking yourself, how to go viral. Because the 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 thing there that you want, the virality, is like being able to be seen. Like going viral is just about like being in the moment and being like recognized. But more than going viral, you want to be able to. The ultimate goal of digital comms is to build a reliable digital base of people who will keep coming back. So going viral may help you capture a first audience of like maybe 30,000 people will like it or look at it. But when you are those 30,000 people are probably not going to be there when you need them to call the governor or when you need them to write a letter or whatever. Oh, how do you decide whether to work within the org versus outsourcing a task? That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Ima was saying, a lot of it is like what's not just realistic, but what do we have capacity for?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, I feel
there's a
like
lot of time.
recently we actually like just had a conversation about that when it came to some of the work that we had to do for Camp Summer Institute, and we were talking about like whether or not we should reach out to like a local artist or something for some of the
Mm-hmm.
graphics that we wanted to put together. Um, and I think it mainly depends on, yeah, like we were saying, Josh, like capacity. Like, are the people within your digital team like capable of fulfilling this task? And do they have the time to fulfill this task? If not, or like if the answer to both of those things is like no, or like not very likely, then like, yeah, it's a good opportunity, I think, to if anything, network and like broaden like who you work with by outsourcing. But of course, just kind of, at least personally for me, I would think like whoever you outsource to or with, just making sure that their vision and goal like aligns with what you are trying to work on.
Exactly what Ima said. I'll add another thing before everyone can answer the question about their favorite thing. Um, when you're trying to decide if you should outsource this task, your budget is probably going to make that decision if you have budget. So if you have the availability to outsource it to someone who can just take the creation of it off your plate, I would go for it, versus like trying to make your time for it. So yeah. And then if folks want to answer their favorite thing about being digital organizers.
I'll start. I definitely just like knowing that I'm working on things that I believe in, and things that I think are important, and that I'm doing it and I'm using all of my skills and talents to do that. You know, like I'm not trying to take on something that's impossible for me to do, that I'm working within my skill set and doing what exactly what I can do to try to make a change.
Right. Yeah, I would say one of my favorite things is that you truly never stop learning, and that's with everything. But when we care about politics, we care about the issues that Texas Rising also cares about. It's really nice to have access to this information from people that know more than us, and always being able to learn. I know when I was like writing the emails, I had to read a lot of articles to make sure that I created, truthful and factual emails. But while doing my job, I was learning, and that's what I love.
I think for me, I love, it's kind of a mixture of what everyone has said thus far. I think I really love the community aspect of it, surprisingly. Like, let me tell y'all, I didn't know any of these people. I didn't know any of them like when we first got started, but it's really cool like to see like our budding relationships, like our work relationships and like just personal relationships like grow as we're like learning together, like Bianca was saying. And also like expanding on our own skill sets, like Larissa was saying. And at the same time, like being able to rely on someone else who's doing the same thing as you. That's a really good feeling. Especially right now with everything being so like obviously remote and distant and like we can't see each other. I'm really happy like to always come back to the digital team and be able to like work together on things that I know that we all genuinely care about. It's awesome.
Stan has a great question here. When wanting to support what's being spoken out to the community, is it best to try to fully support them or just acknowledge the movement and spread the word? One thing I really learned recently, as part of like a real life example, like the past month, we had to pivot really, really quickly to start addressing the just like ridiculous amount of violence that was happening at protests and just surrounding Black Lives Matter. And that's a space where we're not necessarily leaders. So we take instruction from the people who are actually leading those movements. So they usually, a lot of organizations talk together. So they'll have like, here's a messaging guide if you want to support the work we're doing. And here are the things that we would like for you to do to help. So when there's something being spoken out about in community, usually the people organizing it will let you know how they want to be supported. That's definitely how we sort of handled that. Five minutes. For sure. Any other questions that folks have?
I have a question.
Yes.
Josh, how has it been for you making the transition of being like Atlas and holding the whole world on your head, and moving to like this new role of like overseeing all of us?
You know, it's been like incredible. Just like being able to like see each of you take on the skills that you like and like growing in your different areas of digital organizing. Now I'm like, it's just so exciting to see your work and see y'all care about it. It definitely managing is like definitely challenging in a way that I didn't anticipate, and that like I am coordinating things from a whole bunch of people in the field to you. So I become a filter. And communication is just so important. But y'all make that really easy because you're so fun to work with. And there's just so much, like we have a really great, I think, collaborative sort of energy, which is key to being an effective team.
Yeah.
We have one more. What's the biggest thing you've learned about organizing that's different than what you thought it'd be beforehand? Digital organizing? I'd say digital organizing. The saturation, I think like everybody's digital, so we're competing with brands and like other nonprofits to get our message out there. So we really have to spend a lot of energy just to get noticed.
I think for me, something that's different than what I thought it would be is, I guess, and this applies to both out in the field and digitally, is that there's so much, this stuff is really well thought out. Like, I think a lot of people just see it as like, you go out into the street and you protest and you yell and you scream and you go back home. Or you, I don't know, phone bank one time and then that's it. There is like a whole very intricate like system to all of this, like, and there's a lot to learn, and it's so exciting. I love it. I love learning about all this, and it's just so cool to see like there's systems to all of this, and that's dope. I love it.
I would say one thing that I learned about digital organizing that I didn't think about before was kind of like what Ima said. There's a lot of stuff that go into it, and I guess I didn't realize like how when I was like making some post, I would send the post to Josh, and he would give me feedback, and I was like, oh my god, that didn't even cross my mind, like about small things that are really important that are going to may make the message deliver in a certain way that I was not aware of before.
Yeah, I think just really quickly that it's definitely is what you want it to be and what you make it to be. It can be as small and simple or as big and elaborate as
Mhm.
the time and effort that you put into it. So you can truly make it whatever you want.
It's a great answer, Larissa. It really is. Like your digital strategy should be something that fits you and your needs. Thank you all so much for all the love in the chat box. We're definitely excited to have had you here and hope you enjoy the rest of your camp. So, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.